All right. We should be able to get started here now. I think you guys should be able to hear me, correct? Go ahead and say in chat. I actually have a teleprompter set up with chat being beamed up onto some glass so I can look at and read chat as you type. So let's just give everybody a minute or so. Okay, sounds good. Looks like you guys can hear me. Hope the transition to digital delivery wasn't too big of an issue. I need to see how to increase the font size. Type into Discord. That way I can. I would it would be nice if we could use YouTube chat, but unfortunately, live streaming on a platform without a moderator is literally asking for trouble. There we go. User settings and appearance. All right. So there we go. Now I can read chat much better. All right, there we go. Just making sure. So hopefully it wasn't too sudden to switch to online content. All right, sorry. I had the camera blur still on. But here we go. You should be able to now see the JDoodle editor at a reasonable font size. I have the camera, and if I need to, I can move the camera around. That took an unbelievable amount of time configuring plugins, but works pretty nicely. So, who out of curiosity, who here has installed Android Studio at all yet? Okay. That's fine. I didn't ask you to, so I was just curious. Huh, more people than I expected. That's good. So today we're just going to talk about the concepts that I want to cover in the rest of the course. And so, it's going to be a lot of demonstration, and it's okay if you don't quite understand what I'm showing you today. It's sort of the point of this is to pique your curiosity and sort of broaden your horizons as to why we're going to be doing what we're doing. So, hopefully this setup seems to be working pretty good. I think you can hear me pretty well, correct? You can understand what I'm saying? Is there there shouldn't be any major background hiss or anything like that, correct? All right. Okay. If it's a little quiet, we can do this. All right. How does that sound? Is that better? You should be able to hear me a little bit louder now. Unfortunately, I think there's a little bit of like a 10-second delay or so. Maybe 5-second. Unfortunately, the ultra low latency ingest server for YouTube isn't available right now. But all right, so let's play with Java basically, and let's get this working cleanly. So we talked about previously how public static void main string args is I prefer this way. They both work, but just out of habit. Enables you to pass in variables. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So first thing you'll notice is I use some syntax that you might not have been super familiar with. What this is essentially the same as this, which you should be more familiar with from previous classes. Sorry, microphone's in the way of typing. Oops, typo here. There. So we execute this. Args typo. Okay, we'll see it went through the list twice. args1, args2, args1, args2, or arg2. So this is just something you should become familiar with. There's different ways to do syntactically essentially the same thing. This is much clearer that you're iterating over every instance of a string, and we're going to call it S inside the set of list. Yeah, group of strings named args. And in here, we're being much more precise of what we're doing. Like, we're iterating one variable instance at a time. And essentially, they do the same thing. However, doing it the more complicated way allows you to actually customize it. Whereas the iterating over every instance hits every instance regardless. 1 through 6, 1 through 5. Just some little syntactic sugar to be aware of and logical differences between them. When possible, if you're going to hit every instance, try to do something like this. It's a lot cleaner than this. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try and get onto the lower latency server. That'll be more interactive that way. So, why is the main inside class? Because it has to be in Java. So when you say you're used to seeing it separate, are you used to seeing it inside a separate file called main? What precisely do you mean by that? So this function needs to exist inside a file. That file generally I mean, we can delete this. Don't know if it'll actually run. Yeah. It's expecting a class. So you have to put the main inside of the class. It might be that you used an editor that allowed you to use this outside of a class. Okay. You're talking C++. Okay. Yeah, C++ is completely different than Java when it comes to that peculiarity of syntax. I was really confused. I thought you meant in Java. So, okay. So, it's difficult to do. Oh. Well, we'll show you multiple files another day. Today, we're just going to stick with the single file for the simple interface, and then we'll get more involved. Because realistically, you would call this main, and you would have the main, and realistically, you would have private process void. This is probably what you're more used to seeing. Oh, yes. There we go. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I've already worked a full day. There we go. Syntax. it can be a killer sometimes. So this might be more what you're used to seeing, is you have a main class or a main method, and you have a main class, and then you might also have other classes that you call, that type of thing. So we can leave this like that. Leave it like this. There we go. It doesn't really matter. It's just preference, really. There is some nice benefits to having your main be very simple like this. You could easily have an entire method process 2 that does not spit out that. You execute it, it does the full thing, come up here, process 2, execute, doesn't do that. So there's some benefits to doing things a little more indirectly. And that actually brings me to an interesting, what I actually wanted to talk about today is we're going to focus on some of the design patterns that we'll talk about in this class this semester. And we'll delete that. We'll delete this and this. Previously, I showed you the animal class and how you can extend it and implement, I think dog and cat were these animals I wrote. And those have some interesting characteristics. Well, let me think. So this is the design patterns book. I wanted to talk about design patterns. So let's talk about what it considers creational patterns. And I think these are the easiest to start off with. At least some of them. Factory and builder. Yeah, those are good. I also have a bunch of other books over here I was going to talk about, but we'll get to those if I have spare time. So let's talk about how you create a class, first of all. I can't think of the name of the type of polygon where they're all the exact same length, but we'll just pretend that for this example, they're all that way. Okay, so there's our base class. And we want to extend it and implement some instances of this static class. Triangle extends Polygon. Public triangle. All right. So we made a triangle class here. You'll see that it extends Polygon. I have protected, and we'll talk about that here in a second, variables, number of sides and side length. I have down here constructor parameters for, and you'll notice they have different names for a triangle. So let's go ahead and see, can I make a triangle? But let's first try a polygon. So will this work? I don't know. Let's find out. Actually, I do. It worked. But didn't do anything. There's no input. There's no output. There's nothing going on here. Let me just check to make sure nobody else has joined. Okay, good. All right. So I talked about what this protected is. Oh, are you missing the results? Let me check on my... Oh, okay. That would be my bad. I apologize. I have a 1440p screen. Oh, yeah. It's not scaling the resolution nicely. Settings. Output. Streaming. I can't change it either. Well, let me look to see. I'll see if I can rescale this. OBS rescale. Okay, I'm going to try changing my desktop. Yeah, I'm going to try changing my desktop resolution. That might fix it. Yes, that fixed it. So let's see. You should be able to see the black box just barely now. Yep. Okay. See, this is why I wanted to make sure we test this. We can scale down a little bit. That scaling was a little ridiculous, actually. Alright, so let me know. You should still be able to see the text clearly, correct? Okay. Alright, sounds good. Just want to make sure. So, where was I? Oh, Polygon. So, we created a Polygon. But, let's go ahead and do this. Let's copy this and create a Polygon 2. And let's create a Polygon 2 here. P2. Now, has anybody read ahead in the book and knows what changing this to public will do? Anybody have a guess? Okay. So, P2 dot. Aha. I forgot. I don't have autocomplete in this editor. That's a shame. Autocomplete would have shown that you can type these things. So, for instance, system.out.println 2 plus P2 dot size. We execute that, and it's 0. Okay, great. P1, which just doesn't have a number after it. We try to execute that. Huh. Might be a little wonky because I'm in, if all the classes are in this. Oh, yeah, it is. So if this was in a separate file, you wouldn't be able to access these. It would act like private. So let me show you what that does. Gives you an error. So it says a number of sides has private access. So protected means that it's accessible in this file and children of Polygon. I always forget the in this file too. It's a very not always significant nuance, but it is true to know. So that's just what I was getting at. There's 4 public visibility things: public, private, protected, and package. Package is a little misleading. There's nothing there. That means it has package visibility. I'll get into how those work when we get to multiple files. That'll make more sense. So I just want to, like I said, today's just to broaden your horizons, show you a bunch of stuff, let you be curious, and go from there. It had nothing. I got a question. You'll notice Polygon 2 is public also. Protected is redundant in a private class. I want to say you can't have a private class, but it's possible that you can have a private inner class. So, yeah. You can have a private inner class, but you can't have a private class in its own file. Because it wouldn't make any sense. It wouldn't be accessible. Like I said, we'll talk more about that once we get to, we'll use the advanced IDE and we'll be using multiple files. Using single files like this has some benefits because everything's on the screen at once, but it breaks some core concepts a little bit, like what we were just talking about. And I honestly forgot about that. So, anyways, what I really wanted to get to was now we'll notice this is going to break because I tried to create a triangle. It cannot be applied to given types for the constructor triangle. What that means is we come down here, we look at what's called the constructor, and we didn't pass in arguments. However, we can do some things. We can do this. And execute. It worked fine. Note, this is what's called a default constructor. It has no parameters. Also, the number, order, and type. Now, read this carefully and think about what I just did. I inverted integer and float. Float, then integer. There's two numbers here. The way they're written, it thinks both of them are integers. So it wouldn't be able to use either of these. It doesn't know how to match the constructor. But we do this. We execute. Oh. I forgot it. By default, it parses these as double instead of float. So that errors out. So let's show that. Possible lossy conversion from double to float. Float are, I believe, 32-bit, and double are 64-bit decimal numbers. So you can't convert cleanly double to float because you might lose precision unless you override it, and we execute that. Oh, got to put it on the right one though. And we cast the double as a float. So we know, or we expect, and this is why this casting is generally can be dangerous, but it's important to know about. You can cast a double down to a float and it work. You can actually cast a lot of different numbers and things as others. I'll go ahead and pull up a chart for next class to show you how exactly all that works. But you can have a lot of different constructors for a single class. This is a triangle class. It has a default constructor, and it has a bunch of different other constructors. But notice, the number, order, and type never align for all of these. Int, float, float, int, double, double, int. So each one of these has to be different. And you can, and if you didn't notice the pattern, I'm telling this that it's a float with the F at the end. Just something to be aware of. So we execute this. Float. There we go. And we got to here, and we outputted that string. Does everything make sense so far? Just going through, we're kind of scattershot talking about how classes are produced and whatnot, how you make constructors, the importance of number, order, and type, and parameters. The parameter, number, order, and type thing, that's not just for constructors, that's for all methods. Okay. So what's nice about this is you see that because triangle extends polygon, it inherits these variables. Now we've set them. Go ahead and delete this. And public. Perimeter. I don't know if that's spelled correctly or not. Doesn't look right, but I think it's right. But whatever. We'll just do double. It's easier. Return side length times double and double. Make everything a double times number of sides. See if I... Oh. Got it. Yep, there we go. No. Multiplication worked. But why are we passing in the number of sides for a triangle? Hopefully some of you thought about that question. Mainly the reason I did it was so that I could show you the difference in ordering. So we can actually cut that out. And it should still give us the perimeter. Does that make sense? How we are using the inherited parameter from the parent class in the child class. So here's the parent class, here's the child class. Parent defines these two parameters, and we're making use of them. We're setting them in the constructor, and we're using them in this method called perimeter. Yeah, I didn't spell that right, but regardless. Oh no, it is spelled right. I surprise even myself. Everybody understand that? It's pretty straightforward, but it's super foundational for what we're doing. Is how methods and parameters are inherited from parent to down towards children. Does anybody have any questions about this? This is unfortunately when a system like WebEx or some other solution like that where we're all on voice chat can make it there. Is there a way to restrict a child class from inheriting a characteristic of the parent class? Or is that bad programming? No, it's not bad programming. It can be very frustrating programming. And I actually have examples of that in the Android, I forget what class it is. It is tab layout, I believe. Or maybe that is, I don't know. I have actually a class that I'm going to show you later in the semester where they made a function private, and because of that, it really is inconvenient as a developer. And theoretically, there's a good reason for it, but if I don't need the logic from it, I just need to have it work, and I can put my own logic in. And so I would like to override it in the example I'm going to show you, but you can't. So therefore, you have to go through this giant rigmarole and figure other things out. And it's a pain. But in general, you can quite easily. Let's do this. Private. Execute this. Say hello is restricted to only being usable within Polygon. Now, this method, because it's private inside Polygon, it can't be called by anything unless we do it this way. Public void. Public. The public at the end is just my naming. It doesn't have to have that there. There we go. So in this case, say hello is not accessible outside of the parent class, but it has a public accessor that, or we can make this protected. Protected would generally be a better case if you want that to only be accessible by internally or by children. And then public would be anybody can call that method. Package is more nuanced, but basically it means what it says. You can access it within the package. But we'll explain that later. But that was a good question. Any other questions? Feel free if you have any questions, something doesn't make sense, or maybe I said something and you didn't hear it, whatever the case is, feel free to interrupt me. The more you interrupt me, the better it is, because if something doesn't make sense to you, even in a class this small, it's statistically likely that there's somebody else who doesn't make sense for it too. Or you want more clarification, or whatever the case is. None of that's a problem. Now, we come up here and let's get rid of this polygon and triangle and whatnot. Okay, so let me show you the first. This is normally not the order I like to present them in, but let's show you your first design pattern, and I think it'll become super obvious why it's important. So, public static class. So I'm going to be basing this off of the idea of what's called a view in Android, but it's just going to be loosely based off of that. So let's get into this. Int width, int height, int string, background, color, string. Class. We'll just make everything public for the sake of argument now. Public. You generally wouldn't do that, but just to save time, public string text, public string text color, okay. All right, this works pretty good. So in this instance, this is just There could be other stuff here that we're just going to pretend doesn't exist for now. Like what would happen when you click the button, things like that. But what I wanted to demonstrate was you can have multiple levels of inheritance of parents. So this would be the grandparent, parent, and child. Makes sense? Okay. So okay, so this is already getting a little tedious. Like, who can tell me what order these should be in for it to make logical sense? That is a trick question. It's not obvious what the order is for those to make sense. Now, there's a reason why that's important. Oops. Okay, I don't have a advanced IDE here, so I need to know offhand what string or what parameter I need to put in for all of these. So let's look. First one, come down here, that's text. Second one is text color. Third one is width, height, background color. So string text equals T, string text color equals blue, and width equals, let's say, 10, int height equals 2. Oh well, let's 200. And string background color equals orange. Just to make them complementary and atrocious looking in actual practice, but hey, whatever. Alright, so let's run this. It runs, nothing special. We made all of these public, so we can do this. Ah, yes, I never actually set them down here. Okay, so T text. Works out well. Great. But it's tedious to have to type all of these. You know what I'm going to do, actually? I'm not going to show you the answer to this. It's going to be your homework. Wow. Just Google builder pattern. Look it up on Wikipedia. I'll put a link in the Blackboard for you, so for you to read that and understand it. I'll copy this text, and next class we'll go ahead and finish why or how the builder pattern helps with this. So, let's see. Are there any questions? Nobody else has joined, so that's good. Well, I guess we have time, actually. Wiki builder pattern. As you'll note, it's one of the Gang of 4 design patterns. I highly recommend you learn how to read UML. It's called Universal Modeling Language. It is super non-intuitive, in my opinion, to start with. However, being able to read these diagrams is super useful. And in particular, I think there's 13 different diagram types. And the important ones are class diagram and sequence diagram. So, as you can see, here's a class diagram. Here's a director. It calls the builder. Yeah. See, I even reading it myself, and I know how this, I really honestly deeply understand this. I prefer this diagramming better. So here's the director. So this is the class that's using the builder. Here's the builder. It has a concrete builder, which is what actually builds the object, and then the object it's producing. Anyways, C# example, but you should be able to read it and understand it. I didn't want to describe it too much, so I'm sort of like, magic hand waving. But go here, just read about this. If it doesn't make sense, that's fine. I just want you to try it on your own first. See if you understand it. This sequence diagram might actually make more sense, because here's the director, here's the builder. It builds parts and then assembles them into the complex object. And that sort of makes more logical sense than what's going on here, at least to me. So we'll go ahead and end here about 10 minutes early. If anybody has any questions, I'll stay on to answer them. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and get off of here, and you guys can hopefully stay safe. So can you guys still hear me? You're not talking in class or in chat. Oh, the result for the code? T. Because I came up here and text was T. What should you read for class? Well, this stack of books. That would be awesome. I mean, I don't even know what I would do if you were able to read this much. No. Just read the website, builder pattern. See if you understand it. If not, just start reading through the book here. Let's look. Ideally, you want to read about a chapter out of the book a week, at least, because there's 11 chapters and we have 16 weeks, and I'd like to cover some additional topics. Does the class with the bottom extending the view do anything with this code, or something there later? You mean button? Yeah, button. No, button was just there as an example to show you that you can inherit multiple times. Will live stream be recorded? Yeah, the URL you're watching will be valid as the VOD. So that's the nice benefit of YouTube, is the same video will be accessible. Maybe next time what I'll do is I'll pre-write some of the questions or code and copy and paste it in. I think that might be a little bit faster than typing from scratch. But I think it's beneficial to see both. So I'll go ahead and save this and we'll use it again. Excuse me, I'm getting hiccups. I'll go ahead and save this and we'll use it again next class, and then we'll go forward. But yeah, could we get a copy of all the code written in class? What I didn't delete, yeah, I can copy this. I didn't keep the earlier stuff, but it's available on the video to watch. I know that's not perfect. But we can move forward. I can make an effort to go ahead and copy the code, yeah. Yeah, I'll save it each time I delete code, or basically clear the text, I'll save a copy of it. So how's this looking at the at the camera? Is that helpful? I bought the teleprompter assuming it would be, and it wasn't, super cheap. But so I'm hoping it's increasing not interactive, but engagement. That's the term, engagement. Yeah, that I was hoping that this worked pretty well. Yeah, I have. That's why I did the starting timer, the starting transition. Like I have a bunch of scenes. The blurring of the cam, unblurring of the cam, full screen blur. I don't know if that'll actually do anything right now or not. Yeah, the full webcam. I've been trying to make these transitions, and I have a deck that enables me. I even made animated transitions. So, there's my. I'm using OBS if you're curious. So yeah, no, I'm really glad to see that that it is interactive and you guys are feeling engaged by it, because that's really was my goal. Like, I spent 2 months researching, not like all the time, but in my spare time after work and whatnot. I work as full time as a developer, Android applications. So I would spend time watching YouTube videos and downloading software, plugins, things like that, to try and make it so that I was producing as good of a content as possible and making engaging and interactive as possible content. I would, so I'll send out a survey of some type. I'll figure out how people feel about voice chat communications being possible. I think we might need to move towards that. I would have required video, but I've been reading a lot of surveys or studies, like academic ones, where that actually hampers a lot of people who are in any way a minority in the group, and or neurodivergent, or a lot of things, because it enables them to not be distracted outside of the rest of the classmates, or things like that, and it allows them to focus on the content, because they're not afraid that people are watching them. So but I'll ask in a survey, and I'll see. It'll be anonymous, I think. I think I can do an anonymous survey. I'll figure out how. I can't use Discord or anything like that, but I'll figure out how. What your opinions are on voice chat. That way it's more responsive, and I'll be able to instantly hear your question. Hopefully that'll do good. Yeah, let me know how you like this. Yeah, it saves me a bit of a drive, but whatever. Youngstown's relatively small, so hop on 680 and you're in downtown in 15 minutes, regardless of where you're at. So, the main priority of moving class like this was not to purely convenience; it's safety. Unfortunately, COVID, the Delta variant, is much more dangerous than I think a lot of people want to admit. So, spread of it is not looking good. Like last Thursday, the map of counties by the CDC had every county south of Ohio, including Ohio, PA, Indiana, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, like every one of them, every county was in the high ranking. So I haven't even, like, they need to make a new level of the chart to make it like black instead of just red, of where it's even higher than what they consider high spread. So when I saw Eastern Gateway going online, I wanted to test this and for this class, see how you guys felt about it, and then see how good of a production quality we can make this class, and hopefully make it as engaging as possible, because that's my goal. So we'll go ahead and end it there. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in chat. What I'll do is I'll move chat into the main big window, and we'll chat for a little while if you have any more questions. But we'll end the video here, and we'll get going.